we've begun to talk about praise and blame. These are dominant wind currents that we humans create and participate in. Yup, these are our trade winds created by causes and conditions. How do they affect you? How do you respond when you're praised for a good job, when you're given a compliment, when you're appreciated for your efforts? How do you naturally respond or react to them inside? What happens inside? And what happens outside? How do you respond outwardly? I'm going to today break this talk down into two parts. So today is just going to be about praise, specifically about how we receive compliments. Now, of course, we could debate about whether the compliment is deserving or not, but let's settle into a mindful perspective and just look at how we respond to well-deserved compliments, to gifts of words or objects, tokens of appreciation for our efforts. Now take a moment, if you will, and just close your eyes for a minute. Just close your eyes. And reflect on this question. How were you raised to receive praise, to receive positive attention, to receive positive feedback or compliments? How were you raised? What did you learn? All right. Gently open your eyes again. It's good to kind of check in on what our conditioning is, what our conditioning brings forward. I have a friend from childhood who used to tell this story. This is circa 1970s. My friend had wild hair by nature, and her mother loved to fuss over it. It was really big, and she loved to fuss over it, much to the chagrin of my friend. You know, her mom liked to make her look pretty, whatever that meant, whatever that was going on for her. But my friend wanted nothing to do with looking pretty. She didn't want that kind of attention. She didn't like that kind of attention, and she definitely didn't want to look pretty. But she was, actually. And so compliments came her way, often. And her mother gave her this advice. She said, when a compliment comes your way, say thank you and shut up. Well, one day, in walks her aunt, her mother's very Catholic sister, who proceeds to compliment my friend, who then in turn slyly looks at her mother. And then she looks over at her aunt and she says, thank you, and shut up. And she looked back at her mother, and her mother was mad and embarrassed, and her aunt was aghast. So needless to say, it didn't go so well. She got grounded. She was yelled at. Yup. Grounded like a plane. Say thank you and shut up. That's one way. That's a way to respond to praise. But I'd say thank you and receive. Receive the words that are being said. They need to be heard. They need to be heard, to be received, appreciated, and savored. Receive the words like water in a desert, because most of the time what comes at us is negativity, not praise, not in our culture, not in this modern North American culture we have. Most of the time we get hit with criticism or judgment, what we haven't done, what we're late on, right? So receive the words of praise that are offered to you, because the landscape between the regions of kindness can be so long and desolate, to borrow the imagery from Naomi Shahid Nai's poem, Kindness. So here's the practice. Receive the words that just came out of the other person's mouth. If words of praise are spoken, stand and receive them. Can you stand there? And to some degree, just be in stillness and receive the words and the meaning behind them. Let them land. Let the self have the words of uplift, which it needs so much and wants so often. Can you let yourself have a little bit of praise that you've always wanted for a job well done, right? Say thank you and receive. Well, receiving actually isn't so simple, to tell you the truth. I can attest to that. It took me a very long time to actually receive the words and to even actually understand what that meant, what receiving meant. And my best teacher was were not my parents. They were not my school teachers, but they were my uncle. My uncle was my best teacher regarding this. He was my spiritual father, a Catholic priest, and who in death I still have a regular relationship with. I talk to him, and I think about him, and he would say thank you and receive the words and receive the sentiment that's connected to the words. And I would watch him. He was actually, people complimented him a lot, and I spent a lot of time with him. So I saw how he received them. And the thing that I was aware of was that he didn't deflect, he didn't deny, he didn't get all puffed up, but he would really stand there with the person. And I would see him just like calmly breathing and just standing there, and maybe a bit of a smile, and he would say thank you. But I could really feel when he said thank you that it had landed in there. And that was a real learning. Like, I didn't know what I was actually watching, but I understood that something was going on that I was not doing. Because I followed his instructions. He would tell me, like, just say thank you and try to receive the words. And it took me for many years, I would squirm in discomfort because I would want the compliment and not want it. This is so old, deep conditioning. When I was a kid, I didn't even want Christmas presents. I didn't understand why I was receiving gifts when other kids didn't. It made no sense to me whatsoever. So the thank yous, even for Christmas presents, were laced with guilt. Oh. But still, inside, I still wanted to be recognized for a good job. I didn't want that to be passed over. And so this wanting and not wanting was really at odds with one another. And so, when someone would praise me, it'd be laced with a little bit of guilt and a little bit of shame. As though, I said, thank you. I never really received that thank you. I didn't really allow it to fully land. And I learned early on that I shouldn't want praise. That praise led to pride and possibly a big head, getting too big for our britches, as Bill said, as we learned as kids. Pride was a sin. It led to sin. It was confusing and very distressing to kind of get these mixed messages about praise and to feel the dissonance inside. Like, what do you do with that? We have to have enough praise to feel some self-esteem and some self-regard. Because if not, we end up in exactly what Tara Brach described when she described the pandemic in North America as being unworthiness. So receiving praise is actually a practice. In fact, I really didn't learn to receive a compliment until many years into my mindfulness journey, folks. As Bill said, we're both very slow students, both of us. So receiving actually means to feel it. You let the compliment land, you let it register. And for it to land, that means that moi must be grounded in the present moment to receive the compliment that is happening in the present moment. Whoa. Noticing is a big deal. We're talking in real time. Noticing is a big deal. But when you notice, before, during, after, when you notice that somebody has offered that, you receive it. Breathe it in. Appreciate that when you've even noticed the words of praise, because that's the first order of business for making a little shift. So we notice the words that are coming in, and we're breathing with them. And so we notice the words come in, we take a breath, and we breathe our attention inside. We tether the breath to the body to the ground. We receive those words and let the body kind of be awash with that experience of praise. Just for that moment. That's not indulging. That's receiving the moment. And then breathe out. And as we breathe out, we allow, we make room, we let it sort of land in the knowing, oh, somebody just offered that to me. Drink it in. So notice the words. Notice the words when they come your way. Register who's speaking. Register the offering of appreciation. Oh my, thank you so much. Thank you so much. This person is saying something positive, helpful, uplifting. Let's breathe with that. Let's appreciate that. That's how we'll begin to integrate it into the landscape inside. That's how we begin to make a reserve for the heart to draw upon, that experience of goodwill inside, because we've received that goodwill inside. Notice the words. Feel the feelings of comfort and discomfort that arise. Take a breath. Take a breath. Person just said the words to you. Take a breath now. Breathe those words in. Tether the breath all the way down to the ground. Tether the breath to the body to the ground. Let the words reverberate. We need it. Most of the times we tend to let those words bounce off. We minimize, or we call it luck. Doing so diminishes what is being offered. It diminishes the gift in word form. So yes, of course, many feelings are going to arise inside. But can we step into the other person's shoes for a moment? What does it feel like when someone receives your gift very well, kind of appreciates your gesture of kindness? It's like icing on a cake. It feels good before, during, and after. Bill recently had a birthday. I bought him a couple shirts, and there's one shirt in particular that he really went crazy over, really loves. And he was so happy and very appreciative, and he thanked me for it. It was wonderful. And he was so joyful and about his receiving of it. And I could just share in that joy. I could just breathe and share, just land and receive his appreciation, receive his joy of the gift. I could stay fully present to that. As much as is possible, that's what we want to try to do. Because this is learning to be like a tree. This really is learning to be like a tree, learning to stand your ground, learning to receive what's here before you. Praise, praise. Praise is blowing through the branches of your trees. Oh, praise. Wow, doesn't that feel good? Doesn't that feel good? Just allow it. It'll pass. It's going to pass. It's just a moment. It's just a moment. Receive. Isn't that beautiful? Isn't that beautiful? All right. One last thing. Now take a moment. Close your eyes one more time. Close your eyes. And see if you can really, really receive what I'm about to say to you. Okay? Just feel the body sitting here, breathing. You're still a good person. Did you hear that? You're still a good person. Well, there are levels to letting that in. So I know it's kind of cute, but for real, breathe those words in one more time. You're still a good person.